And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the Jeff Mara Podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Marilynn Hughes, who has experienced, researched, written, and taught out-of-body travel and mysticism since 1987. She has authored over 140 books, 40 magazines, and 18 CDs on out-of-body travel and comparative religious mysticism. Marilynn, thanks for joining me today, and welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you. And writing 140 books is amazing. To me, that definitely puts you an expert of out-of-body travel.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been very, very energized over the years to just kind of pump them out, I guess. Is the way to say it.
Did this start for you as a spontaneous experience, or did you train to do it?
You know, it really was spontaneous. I've talked a lot about how when I was 9 years old, I had a really amazing experience that happened that kind of foreshadowed what was going to happen later when I was in my early 20s, when the out-of-body experiences started happening spontaneously then. So when I was 9, I had this beautiful experience. A lot of people have probably heard this, so I'll kind of give the shortened version, but the clouds started swirling, blue, gray, white, all around me. And then they parted to this beautiful marble staircase that led to the heavens, from earth to heaven, golden angels on either side lining the staircase. And up at the top were 2 golden thrones. And one was for God the Father, one was for God the Son. Lightning struck. And I was asked by God the Father, who spoke through this vision, but it was in a voice that was given to me internally. Not, his mouth did not move. It came into me, was transferred into me, told me to come forth. And I came forth, and I came up about halfway up that staircase. And then he showed me an image of the cross, and the cross was set on fire and it began to burn. And he told me that the cross was on fire and that I had a purpose, and that later in my life, this type of experience that I was having would return to me, and my job would be to put the fire out on the cross. And then it was almost like a vision within a vision, where I entered into this and I was gathering buckets of water and I put out that fire on the cross. And as I came back, there was more that was shown to me. I was shown how it would be difficult, and that I would experience persecution, sometimes adversity, a lot of just people coming up against what I was going to do, which did happen. And you have to remember, this all started like 40 years ago. So just remember, things were not as open as they are now when I first began this journey. And then I was back at the staircase, and I had come back down the staircase, and I'm standing at the bottom. And again, the thunderous clouds close up slowly. And I'm just lying there in awe, nine-year-old child. And I just, I think one of the things I remember so profoundly about it, besides the messages that were given to me, was that I knew that God existed. It had been proven to me beyond all measure. And that's what really hit me. It was like, wow, God really exists. And I know it now, you know what I mean? So anyway, I remember, going to my mother, trying to tell her, and my family, although we were Mormon and we were practicing Mormons, but it was mostly my dad's thing, because my dad came from a long line of Mormons. but most of my family members were not believers in God, except for my father, maybe. And I tried to tell my mom what had happened, and she was like, "You stop that nonsense. Don't make things up." And I knew immediately I needed to keep my mouth shut. And I did for many, many, many years. And then at the age of 22, I had another spontaneous out of body experience. This one, not so majestic. It was much more of the ordinary type of out of body experience. Rolled out of my body, had all the things that you associate with an experience, had the the vibrations. I had the jet engine sounds. I heard the thoughts of humanity, all these things that you associate with an out of body experience. You know, as you're coming towards having an out of body experience, your vibrational awareness switches from your physical body to your spiritual body. And so you're going from the lower vibration of the body to the spiritual body, and that is of a higher vibration. And so all of a sudden you feel like you're vibrating at speeds that you cannot imagine. And it's like overwhelming, the power of it. And the sounds of the jet engines, that's also part of that vibration. That's the spiritual realm because it's also of such a higher vibration. The thoughts that you're hearing, which is basically voices, these are the thoughts of humanity that are emanating all around the astral plane that are coming off of Earth. And so then, you know, I rolled out of my body, floated up to the ceiling, and looked down, saw my body. It looked like just a gray thing. It was, you know, seemed very meaningless. But at that time, I was afraid because I thought I might be dying. I came back to my body, and then I prayed and asked that if this were going to happen again, that it would be made so that I would not be afraid. The next time I was about to have this experience, I went into the vibrational state. I lifted my arm and I saw my light arm come out of my body. And then all of a sudden, I had angels on either side, three golden angels on each side, and they lifted me out. And the whole thing was very peaceful. And that's what began it. So, what began as a simple out of body experience ended up moving towards what would become literally a journey into the entire cosmology of the universe. So, you know, you begin by learning how to move and exist and hear and see in the spiritual worlds and move throughout the astral plane, which is the fourth realm, which overlaps the third dimension. But then you start learning how to travel through corridors, of which there are many different types, which take you into past lifetimes, other realms, higher realms, middle realms, and lower realms, and eventually heavens, hells, and purgatories. And you are taught by a myriad of angels, spiritual teachers, guardians, and a variety of beings that start to unravel the mechanics of existence to your soul and assist you in raising your vibration to higher and higher levels of knowledge. One of the things I tell people, knowledge is not information, it's vibration.
Well, let me stop you because I've got several questions already.
Awesome.
If we go back to the beginning, when you left your body as a 9-year-old, what were
Yes.
you doing immediately preceding the experience? Were you sleeping? Did you get injured? What happened that caused you to leave your body?
I was not injured. I was in bed and I was sleeping. And I don't recall there being anything unusual except that I was an unusually devout child. I was in love with Jesus. I would read the Bible all the time, and I would pray to Jesus all the time. I had a very strong uh, faith in God, despite the fact that I was around a lot of people who didn't. And but I wasn't doing anything unusually uh, that would bring this about. It was very, very just spontaneous.
Before people start writing this in the comments, is it possible that you were just dreaming?
No, that experience was more conscious than anything I have ever experienced in this physical world. And this is one of the things that, people will often ask, well, this is what I experienced. Was that an out of body experience? If you have an out of body experience, you know it. You don't have to ask. It's so conscious. It's so vivid and so uh so intrinsically alive. You cannot deny it for yourself. You understand that people around you may not be able to understand it or accept it, but for yourself, you do know what happened. It's just one of those things that never leaves you.
What is the significance of the burning cross?
The significance of the burning cross, as I understood it, and you have to remember I was 9 years old, so it was just a symbol at that time. And part of that is understanding my age. The symbol was that people were trying to destroy the cross. They were trying to destroy the Christian message. They were trying to destroy what Christ had built in this world. And somewhat part of my mission was that I had to uh, put out that fire and let the cross stand tall.
You've kind of already alluded to this, but can you give us a more detailed breakdown of the events that happen as you're leaving your body? Like the jet engines, then vibrations, then hearing voices, etc.
Sure. So what often happens is, people will go into a deep level of consciousness, and what often is the first, well, there'll be different signs and things that people might have. They might start seeing colors. They might start feeling feeling things like that you're coming towards this, but the vibrational state is the key. People will experience this vibration that is so powerful. Um, Oftentimes, when people experience the first time, they will be so overwhelmed by it that they immediately, pull themselves out, because it is really, really powerful. You cannot describe it. When you experience it, it's overwhelmingly powerful. Your whole body goes into this vibration. It's almost like your body becomes an engine, and that's not even sufficient to really describe it. Um, but that vibration is your spiritual body.
When you say vibration, are, are you experiencing it as shaking?
Sort of. I mean, that word is useful, but it's like shaking is sort of useful. It is a vibration that is so far beyond anything you can comprehend in this world. It is a rhythmic, pulsating vibration that is more powerful than anything you can experience in your body. It's different than anything that we do experience in our body. And it is that vibration of the soul. The way that our physical bodies vibrate is so much lower than the soul that it literally really throws us, because it's so powerfully uh, catastrophically different. You know what I mean? The jet engine, it's the same thing, and the jet engine is also a uh, not a perfect example, really, because it's like you're lying underneath a jet engine on a tarmac. You know what I mean? Except that that's not even really close, but it's the closest thing I can come up with. you are hearing this vibration of the spiritual world. And this vibration is similar to, but not exactly like that. You see what I'm saying? You start hearing all these people talking. And when you first hear it, you're like, where's that coming from? You know? And eventually you learn that it is that you have now entered into that spiritual vibration where now you can hear the thoughts of humanity, which are reverberating through the astral, also known as the fourth realm. And those thoughts can be heard in the fourth realm. And so those are the things that you're going to feel immediately. Some of the other things that people might experience at this time, they don't always experience it at this time, because sometimes they'll just experience it this way and then they'll roll out or will themselves out, or they'll just spontaneously be ejected from their body and then experience, whatever. They might wander around their room. They might actually go through a window or a wall and, float around their neighborhood immaterially and experience the astral plane a little bit. Some people might have a more expanded experience and actually move through some of the corridors, which are going to take them into higher spheres, hopefully. And, hopefully they're going to travel that way. But there are also people who may have these other things that are more often associated with the near-death experiences, which can happen with the out-of-body experiences, but they don't always happen with every out-of-body experience, which is the unconditional love of God will descend into your soul, and you will experience literally what the emanation of love actually is. This is one of the most important things that we can experience, because people have this understanding of God. God is love. And they say, well, yeah, we all know that, blah, blah, blah. But they don't understand what that means until this has happened, where the emanation of actual love as vibration comes into them, and this unconditional merciful love of God, which is so far beyond any type of human experience, enters into them. And then they understand that love is a substance, it is an emanation, it is something greater than what we understand it to be. And then beyond that, sometimes people will have this downloading, coming into them, the mysteries of the universe. So for a moment or for a period of time, they may experience where all of a sudden everything makes sense. All the dichotomies, all the things that contradict one another now make sense, and they understand them. And all the things that supposedly do contradict each other, they see that they actually don't when you see it through the eyes of God. And so this mysteries of God's wisdom kind of descends into the soul. And so those two things also can happen at the beginning of an out-of-body experience, but they don't always happen at in every out-of-body experience. And so those are also part of that experience.
Are there any dangers to leaving your body, like not being able to get back in, or another entity coming along and stealing your body?
A lot of people have concerns about these things, and I'll take those three things right in order. So one of the main things that's real important for people to understand about the first thing, which is thinking that they won't be able to come back. One of the things I've been shown over the last 40 years is that almost all souls, when we go to sleep at night, this is part of the mechanics of existence. There is a process going on. Most people are actually experiencing levels of out-of-body travel in their sleep, but they're not conscious of it. It's either subconscious or unconscious. And the angels have taken me many times to walk through and watch what they do and how they make these corrections in the subconscious minds of souls, because they have this inherent knowledge that God gives them of what every individual soul needs to help them to overcome whatever blocks or things are in their way, and help them to make the next step. And it's a very, very unbelievably beautiful thing to watch. And then they will just move through from house to house and work on soul to soul. And I've seen how this works and how the angels and God himself will move through the infinities, and that every human soul is not, and no one is forgotten. And this is part of the mechanics of existence. And so when people start to understand that this is actually already happening, it's just that you have forgotten, then you understand that that danger does not exist. It's just a matter of becoming consciously aware of something that is already happening. And the benefit of doing that is that when you become consciously aware of it, you become able to bring conscious awareness of eternal truths that are being taught to you into your conscious space much quicker. And you have this ability then to make these energetic shifts on a conscious level, and it greatly accelerates your spiritual purification on earth. Now, the second thing was, can you help me out with the second thing? The second thing was,
One, can you get stuck? And then I asked, can someone steal your body while you're out?
okay, so stealing your body while you're out. It's kind of the same thing, where because this is a natural mechanism, that's really um, not the case if you're practicing this uh, in this way. Now, people who are doing things where they're messing around with black magic or the dark arts or doing things like that, they are inviting things like that. So there are dangers for things like that. In terms of the real dangers that exist, um, I'm going to try to weave this a little. We are living in a cosmology of good and evil. We do have principalities and powers of good and evil. And in your out of body travels, you will experience, excuse me, heaven, hell, and purgatory. And you will experience angels and demons and all kinds of beings. You'll experience the old ones of the Native American traditions. You'll experience shamans, medicine women. You'll experience the creative beings who energize all of creation, but you'll also experience like a myriad of beings who are here to cause destruction and chaos. And part of what you do need to learn is how to protect yourself in those situations. And there are ways to do that. Um, but let me point out the danger of not being aware of those spiritual warfares, which is the other side of it, which is not being conscious. One of the things that happens when we choose not to be conscious of the spiritual warfares that are going on all around us is that we can become controlled or obsessed by forces that we're unaware of, and we are behaving or acting or thinking from sources that are unknown to us consciously, but may not be coming from God, but may be coming from a destructive force. And we may fully believe that it is good. And so part of the whole process of being open, because the process of out-of-body travel, and out-of-body travel is a tool. It's not, that's what it is. It's a tool. Using out-of-body travel as this spiritual tool, the purpose then is to enter into a path of purification. And this path of purification is important because we are in a mortal realm where these battles between good and evil do rage, and they rage inside each and every one of us and all around us. And we have to realize that this purification has to begin within. And so if we do not engage in any kind of purification processes in our souls, we can find ourselves not only, doing this circular process of reincarnation, where we continue to come back and forth doing the same things, but we can also find, going back to the fire on the cross, we can find that we might actually be doing things that serve forces that actually are against God. And we might think that we are not against God, but we don't really know that or see it because we are not engaging in the proper discernment of our wills and of the actual elements that are around us and controlling us, because we are not doing the things that actually untether us.
All right, let me stop you again so I can catch up with some more questions.
Sure.
Are you saying that if we are able to purify ourselves, we won't have to reincarnate anymore and we can go on to other realms?
To higher realms, to the next step. Paramahamsa Yogananda talked about the same thing and going into the astral worlds. And a lot of the masters would talk about this. You'll see that in the ancient sacred texts, what they're trying to guide us to do is to finish up what we're here to finish up, and that is the purification of the soul. And each one of these ancient sacred texts from every religion around the world is giving us a different method or mode of coming to this point where we can become what some religions call a non-returner. you know
Are we unpurified because of that's the way we're raised, or is it because we're being controlled by some unseen force?
Well, there's always everything. So in fact, let me pull up, if you don't mind, I'll just pull up something that I wrote about that explained all the forces that play into how this works. This can be a combination of everything. So it can be what we came in with, what we were born with, that came in from our past existences. It comes with how we were raised. It comes with the forces that we have allowed around us. It can come from the forces that we listen to. But I'd like to read this. This is from the Mysteries of the Redemption. It says, and this is talking about it in relation to the concept of original sin, but we're talking about the same thing. It says original sin is an interesting concept because it can apply to so many aspects of existence. Original sin can be the failings that we, through example, give to our own children. It can be the failings of a particular extended family that we, through example, give to our children. It can be the failings of a particular city or township that we, through example, give to our own children. It can be the failings of a country It can be the failings of a society. It can be the failings of all humanity. It can also be the failings of a particular soul that through the mechanism of karmic retribution and transmigration are given to that soul at birth. It can also be the acts of darkness that a soul is forced to process because it was done unto them.
Even if we're not able to have an out-of-body experience, how do we understand or learn if we are being controlled? And if so, how do we break free?
So, how do you know that you're being controlled? And let's talk about it just in the aftermath of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. If you are angry about a person that you've never met simply because they don't share your views, you are being controlled by something. If you are unable to generate compassion for a person who was murdered, assassinated, simply because they don't share your views, you are being controlled by something. If some part of you experiences happiness or a good riddance kind of a feeling because someone was assassinated who doesn't share your views, you are being controlled by something. And what you're being controlled by is not of God. It is the other side. And so what we have to ask ourselves is what are the things that come from God and what are the things that come from below? The things that come from God, those things that generate the angels of virtue, would be things like compassion, forbearance, patience, love, sympathy. And those kinds of emotions would bring into our sphere, because what we learn in the out-of-body travel state is that our thoughts are what give dominion and permission for the angels of good or the angels of evil to be in our perimeter. So those kinds of thoughts would give dominion or permission for those types of the angels of the virtues to be in our perimeter. If we have angels of the vices, angels of hatred, angels of feeling joy at someone else's hardship, not being able to generate genuine love or compassion for another human being simply because they don't share your view, or actually rejoicing in the death of another human being for any reason. These are all signs that there are dark spirits around you controlling you.
How do you break free from these dark entities?
You start with simple things like, I revoke the authority I have given you over my soul. You start making statements because you, first of all, recognize that I have given permission to this by my actions, my thoughts, my words, and my deeds. And when you catch yourself, I revoke the authority I have given you. And you start with that. Then you start replacing those actions with the opposite virtues. And this is the essence of the path of purification. So if I have hatred in my heart, I'm going to replace it with love. And if it's hard for me to do, I make it my practice. So if I have hatred for someone, this is my practice, that I am going to meditate on loving that person, generating love for that person. If I am taking joy in the suffering of another human being, I am going to focus on experiencing true compassion and putting myself in their shoes and wishing only good for every other human being, no matter what they believe or think or do. We have to bring humanity back to the human race. We need to remember that what Christ taught was to love one another as I have loved you. We love to judge other people by either the worst thing they've done or by a 6-second soundbite. But we don't want to be judged like that, do we? None of us wants to be judged in the way that we judge others. So we have to replace that with understanding. We all want to be understood, but we don't want to try to understand, right? Our job then, when we don't want to understand and we want to say, no, this person is defined by a 6-second soundbite, we go back and we make it our practice to actually try to understand what that person really stood for, who they were. And it's okay if they stood for a lot of different things, and maybe once in a while they misspoke. Because you know what? Every one of us has misspoken. We need to stop and pay attention to the types of things that are coming out of us, because those are signs and signals of what is controlling us. And so we need to be very alert to this, because the types of things that we have seen recently are demonic, but people are not realizing that it is. And when they do start realizing that it is demonic to spew this kind of hatred, maybe they'll stop and think, and they will say, I revoke that permission. And I'm going to go in my room, I'm going to meditate, and I'm going to generate love for that person that I have wronged with my words, my thoughts, or my deeds. And it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's this person that is being wronged right now, or any other person who has been wronged in the past or might be wronged in the future for the very same reasons. Because this is how it's done. This is how the dark side takes control. This is how you are slowly pulled into, it's okay to hate this person, because if you hate somebody that you don't know, and basically take it the next step, if you're really on a spiritual path, if you hate somebody, that's a spiritual problem. And you need to be doing the spiritual practice of, I need to learn to love that person. And there is a practice for that. Generating love for that person in particular in your heart. Many of the Buddhist masters taught this particular practice, that when you have a particular object of that emotion, you do that particular practice on that particular object, because it's a very powerful practice to help you to overcome that particular thing. But you do need to revoke that permission you're giving to those spirits that are encouraging this.
It seems like a lot of the advice you're giving us for the path of purification is reactive. And what I mean by that is we're reacting to the negative things that we do. But are there any other tips that you can give us that are just general daily activities that we can do that will lead us down the path of purification?
Yes. What I do, I recommend to people that they engage in daily prayer, meditation, and spiritual reading. And the meditation, if you're interested in out of body travel, I always tell people to give out blocks of 3 hours because it takes a long time to get to the level of consciousness required to get into that vibrational state. And when you allow and discipline yourself to do that period of time, you're much more likely to achieve the vibrational state eventually. When I talk about spiritual reading, you can certainly read my books, and I'd appreciate that, of course. But I also am talking about mystical theology. And a lot of times I recommend an introduction to the devout life by St. Francis de Sales. And I recommend a book called The Spiritual Life by Father Adolphe Tanqueray. Now, a lot of people have difficulty with these books because it's written in what I call like mystical language. So if you have trouble with those books right off the bat, don't worry about it. Start with like The Mysteries of the Redemption, one of my books, A Treatise on Out-of-Body Travel and Mysticism. You can always send me an email and I will come up with other alternatives that can help you to work your way up to. An introduction to the devout life is a little bit easier, so you can start there. And the spiritual life is a little bit more difficult. Some people are like, no, I love this. This is perfect. And they're fine. But some people do. I've had a lot of people who've had trouble. So don't feel bad if you do. And there are other options. I've got a whole wall full of options. So I can make a lot of suggestions. And what these books do is they help you to go through this intrusive self process where you literally do go through and it's an intrusive self-examination where you go through your whole life and you're able to identify the areas where transformation might need to take place. Minor changes, sometimes major changes, but little tweaks here and there. And it's powerful, and people become mystics as a result. Got a lot of mystics at the Out of Body Travel Foundation who didn't come there having experiences, but they have them all the time now. And it's because you open the door to being instructed, and all of a sudden you become teachable.
Once you pop out of the body, and if you have other beings that are controlling you, can you see them?
Sometimes, not always immediately. Sometimes it takes practice. So you might not see them immediately. And in fact, you may not see them for a while, because a lot of what happens is you'll start out in the out-of-body travel journey and you'll be taken to see all the beautiful things. You'll see the heavenly spheres, you'll be taught all the beautiful things. And then what happens is you will be told it's now time to learn about the darkness. You're taught in a way that is comfortable for your spirit. And it does seem like this is very common. So this is what I see with other people as well. You are given to see the beautiful things first, and then all of a sudden it's time to learn about the darkness. And that's when you start getting shown, well, this is where you have these issues, and this is where you have these attachments. And then you start having to learn how to overcome some of the vices that are giving permission for these things to be there, starting to make some changes on a deeper and deeper level for that. This is where some spiritual warfare comes into play. So yes, you do see them. It's not usually right away, but oftentimes, to be honest too, part of what brings people to my site is because they've had experiences and they've reached that point, and that's what they need help with, is they've reached that point and now they're in the spiritual warfare and they're seeing these things and they need help with that. And my books help you with that. I've got a lot of stuff on that too.
Would it be accurate to say that we are all stuck? Well, not all of us, but most of us are stuck in the reincarnation cycle, and the way out is through purification.
to some extent, that is very true. Not every soul is stuck in the reincarnation cycle, but most of us are. Most of us are here for that reason. There are some here that are special souls that have been sent to do special missions. There are a lot of different reasons, but the majority of us are here because we are working out our individual karmic issues, and that is the path of purification. You know, we do get stuck.
Some of my guests talk about the archons, which are beings that are here with us that are living off our negative emotions. Would that be the same thing as the controllers?
It's similar, but they're not the same because they are actually from what I'll just tell you the way I've experienced them is that's probably the best way to do it because I know what you're talking about with the archons. The way that I've experienced it is that you have a variety of beings. So in the astral plane, you have lost souls who have died, who oftentimes haven't realized they've died and they're kind of stuck. And those are also ghosts and wandering spirits who are there for a variety of reasons. Some of them are actually doing purgatory on earth. And then you have dark spirits who are actually more doing bad things intentionally. And then you actually have the demonic realm. And so there's various gradations of the demonic. So you can have, lower level demons all the way to the higher level demons. And so you can have all of those things that can be around you, causing you trouble. And I've worked with a lot of people trying to help them to clear out things. And I've seen people who had problems, and it can be anything from demonic attachments to, like, one woman thought for sure she was possessed, and it turned out she had a whole slew of lost souls attached to her. So they weren't demonic, but it felt that way, to her. Some people will just have a lost soul, and it feels like it's a much more nefarious spirit, and it's a lost soul. You can have wandering spirits who like to play around with people. Sometimes they're tricksters. So it can be any of those things. But what we're talking about a lot right now is there is a lot of activity in the demonic realm here on Earth, and there is a lot of attachments with human beings right now in our world. I did talk about this in a documentary that's available at the website and my channel, The Road to Armageddon, and it speaks about how, I've had these experiences flying through particular US cities where the density of the demons, flying through the air is so tight that it's truly overwhelming, and you feel completely exhausted if you finally get through it. That is the nature of how things are right now. There is an extreme concentration.
Do you think it's possible that all of us here on the planet originally were high frequency beings, maybe even angelic, and we've been degrading over and over and becoming lower and lower? It's not that we're ascending, but we've been descending. And maybe we're at a level now where the angels are trying to help us stop and ascend again.
That's always possible. What I've been shown anyway has been that the majority of us have actually been going from lower realms moving up, but you have to understand we're talking about the mechanics of existence, and I'm only shown what I'm shown. And so I imagine that there's all sorts of combinations and configurations of how this works for souls, because the one thing you do learn when you go out of body, if you do it enough, is that whatever you think you only know this much. There's always so much more to know. And so, like, for the origination of where we all originally came from, that's very difficult to know entirely. And I really just only know what's been shown to me. And so the only thing I know is that many of us have been evolving from this lower level. But, why did we start there? How did we start there? I don't know. And then could that be what you said? Sure, it could be. I don't know why, but sure, it could be. But I have not been shown that. You know what I mean? There could be a lot of different combinations for different souls because there is so much of the infinity when you're dealing with the entire cosmology that we travel into. It's just so unbelievable when you go out there uh, and you realize very, very quickly just how small we are and how little we can understand. And so we really can only encapsulate so little of it, even as human beings.
How many years have you been going out of body?
It's been since I was 22, so that would be 39 years.
All right. Over the 39 years, have you seen changes in the astral worlds? And if so, where do you think humanity is going with all the changes that you've seen?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. The things that I've seen, I started seeing very early on. I had prophetic experiences from the late 80s and early 90s of things that I was shown that would happen, and I was given specific dates in the 2020s. So 2027, 2031, was given specific dates, and I was shown things that were going to happen that are happening now that at the time in the early 1990s, I was like, that's crazy. That'll never happen.
Can you share what's coming?
What I was shown in the early 1990s was that the years 2027 to 2031 would be pivotal for determining what the outcome of our world would be. And would we end up either in a massive destruction, either through a world war, an asteroid hit, or some massive natural destruction? And I experienced a lot of different things that my main hesitation in sharing it is because I don't like to put things out there that are set in stone. And I don't like to energize things because I always pray against things that we don't want to happen. These are not set in stone. Anything that you're shown can change. This is a whole thing that I could talk about in relation to the management realms and alteration of reality. But I was shown things like Islamic warriors fighting on our soil in the United States. And in the early 1990s, that was unheard of and crazy. Um, I was shown um, people um, fending for themselves, living in caves, and there was a huge destruction. One of them was an asteroid. One possibility seemed, and it was like it wasn't clear what the destruction was because it could have been that all these things happened or that one of these things happened. It was not clear. One was an asteroid, one was nuclear war, and one was a natural disaster of unclear proportion. But they all resulted in the same thing. And people were living in caves, wandering around. I was wandering around, and I remember being in different caves, different experiences, and people were still blaspheming the name of God in the caves. And I remember saying to them, even in the midst of this chastisement, you still blaspheme the name of God. And I was, it was frightening, it was scary because it was a total severance from the severance from God that people were doing. But there was more. There was a lot more. So there was these things that I had about the times that were coming. And ironically, a lot of these things go in concert with the prophecies of the popes the prophecies that apparently Pope John the 23rd had, which was a similar time frame, which was like 2028 to 2032, where that's what they're talking about. So there's similar time frames that other prophetic visions have shown, that there would be basically some kind of apocalyptic reckoning. I personally believe that we must energize the opposite. We should be praying for a change, that something different can happen, and that there's a change in the heart of humankind. But what I've seen in the mystical, and then the changes that I've seen in the mystical, have been that from the 80s forward, there was this great potential that started for humankind to shift into this new level of consciousness. And then it changed. It changed, and there was this great evil that descended on humankind. And the way it's been portrayed to not just myself, but to others, has been in a variety of ways. One has been the great waters that are caustic and evil, that are just coming in, and everything it touches is destroyed. And that all we can do is just preserve the light, in the hopes that after, this is, in concert with the visions I had in the early 90s, is that after the destruction, we can bring the light back.
Well, how are you shown these future visions while you're out of your body?
I'm taken into the future and I experience it. I go through this tunnel, and my spirit is dropped into these future dates, and I experience it as if I'm there. And I also had a very profound vision that I don't feel comfortable sharing. Um, but I pray very much that it does not come to pass. But this is what, we have to remember, that for people who are interested in understanding what I'm getting at, because I know that I'm not making sense to people who haven't read my books, but in the Mysteries of the Redemption, there's a third section called Medicine Woman Within a Dream, and it teaches about alteration, the alteration pathway. And it talks about how everything that can happen in our individual lives forms in this management realm before it hits the ground. And so that forms there because of our thoughts, our actions, our deeds. And so everything that can happen starts there. And so something can, and this is where, psychics often touch into when they're talking about, oh, this is going to happen. They're touching into the management realm. But what can happen is someone changes something, and that event can be altered. It can also be altered by alterers that are called in by the spirit world, angels and stuff too, who are, and this is what I was taught how to alter. And there are people who are called in to do this, where we go into the management realm and we change the outcome to a better outcome for a soul. This applies also on world events. So when you are shown something of such a massive quantity like this, you don't want to focus on that negative outcome. You want to be focusing on altering it to a better reality, because it is possible to change it to something good. And that's what we want to do. It goes all the way back to when I was 9 years old, when you're taking the bucket of water and pouring out the fire on the cross. We can do that. And every one of us individually can pour out the water on that fire and turn off that ignorance that's making the lack of awareness that's burning the cross. The cross needs to stand tall. And that cross is that teaching that Christ left for us. There is something I'd like to say about what does that mean? Because people are like, I'm not a Christian. I don't care about that. Well, what does that mean, right? There's more to it than even whether or not you're a Christian or all that stuff. When Christ came, he was trying to leave a new blueprint for the human organism. Before Christ came, there were all these realities, mystical realities, cosmic realities. All of these things were not possible before Christ came. He left an energetic footprint that changed what was possible for humankind. And when people try to crush that cross, they're crushing more than Christianity or his message. They're crushing the pattern that he left, which actually thrust humankind forward in its spiritual development. So there's more to it than meets the eye. You know, Christ talked to his apostles about how he spoke in parables because the people would understand the stories, but there was the deeper meaning. There is a deeper meaning, and then there's a meaning below that. And a lot of this goes way beyond this because going back to what I said earlier, vibration is knowledge. Information is not knowledge. The first thing you learn in the out-of-body travel state is that the way to attain knowledge is increasing your vibration. The first thing that will start happening is the angels will come and they will go through vibrational raisings with you. And the reason they do this is because in order for you to travel to higher spheres, is you need to have your vibrations raised to be able to go to these higher and higher levels of existence. And then in order for you to understand what those higher and higher levels of existence have to teach you, you have to have a higher level of vibration and frequency, because it's not something they're going to tell you in words. It's going to be in vibration and frequency. And what Christ brought to the earth was a pattern. It was a vibration and frequency, and it was also a moral code, a a way of living, and he brought the sacramental rites because all these things help to establish and maintain all of those things. And you know, I've written about it in a lot of my books that I was very surprised to see the sacraments in the mystical spheres and the power that they were imbued with, because I became a Catholic as a result of my experiences. I was not born one. And so these things are not what meets the eye. There's more to them. There is mystery beneath the surface. And so what would really be helpful and what people should consider is, how do I put out that fire on that cross and let that cross stand tall? Because by impinging upon it, I'm impinging upon my own potential within this realm, my own ability to follow the path of purification and actually achieve what I incarnated here to do, so that I can actually ascend to the next level when I finish this lifetime. And, you know, one of the biggest things people will say to me is, I don't want to reincarnate anymore. None of us do, right? But then we have all these criteria, but you know, but I don't want to do this. I don't want to read that book. I don't want to be a Christian. I don't want to do this. I don't want to read about the Buddha. I don't like this. I don't like religion. I don't like that. I don't want to, like the whatever, whatever it is. I don't, we all think that we know, but we have to allow God to teach us because we don't know. And when we allow God to teach us, then we become teachable again. And then all these patterns, these vibrations, these frequencies become available to us. And that path of purification can do this swirling motion, right? It unfolds naturally, and we move smoothly towards that goal, which is the ascending from this realm into that next life and being able to move on to the next step. instead of being like, oh man, I forgot it again. Let's do another do-over. And so many of us do that, right? Over and over and over again. And so this is do it for selfish reason if you do it for and no other. And then eventually you will be doing it for selfless reasons. You can start out doing it for a selfish reason though, and you'll get there.
If people want to find out more about your books, where should they go?
They should go to outofbodytravel.org or astralprojection.co and make sure you check out the YouTube channel that's linked there, which is basically at the Out of Body Travel Foundation on YouTube. And you can download our books for free, and you can watch all our films for free and all that stuff, and just get started. And if you have questions, email me, Marilynn Hughes at outofbodytravel.org. I'm happy to give you direction.
Well, if somebody is just starting their purification path, which book of yours should they start with?
Usually recommend Come to Wisdom's Door, which is a very short little book that gives you some basic stuff. And then The Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism. And then there's actually a page on the site for new readers. Make sure to check that out. I usually send them to watch the two films, The Grand Phases of the Soul and How to Have an Out-of-Body Experience, at the YouTube channel as well. And there's some interviews that they might find useful on Coast to Coast AM with George Noory, which goes over a lot of the basics.
While you're out of your body, have you ever seen the Akashic Records, the Halls of Amenti, or anything that would suggest we live in a simulation?
I have seen the Akashic Records, and I have been to the Halls of Amenti, and I have not seen, I've seen a lot of things, but I have never felt that it was a simulation. And I'm not really sure what people mean when they say simulation. I guess I associate that with the idea of the Matrix, like the movie. Um, I do feel that from my experiences that what we live here on earth is very much an illusion. There is an illusion about it, but it's not a simulation. We live a real life here. You know, even quantum physics has a lot to say about that, but it's an illusion in relation to the other side of that life, which is that whole spiritual cosmology is forgotten by most human souls. And so we live in this small, tiny identity, and we are not, you know, we don't have the whole picture. So that's where we have this illusion of this personality when our soul is quite a bit more, quite a bit more. And, you know, you'll learn about more of that in the books. You know, all the personalities we've ever been, all our past lifetimes, our higher self, which is the part of our soul that is closest to God, and the part of our soul that actually, you know, assimilates all the knowledge that we've achieved in all these lifetimes, and making this symbol with my arms of a triangle because that's how it is, you know. The highest self, which is closest to God, is at the top point of the pyramid. And these personalities are what I call multiplicities, because these are the parts of us that are separated from God, and they're all these individual little particles, but they all are the illusory multiplicities that live as though they're separate beings, but they are actually part of this grand whole. They're all part of one another, and they're all part. And so it's that highest self. I, you know, met my higher self many, many times in my experiences. Her name is Odyssey. And I went through in the initiations into the mysteries through the process of the reintegration of the knowledge of all those lifetimes into my body, so that you become where you can access these previous lifetimes, and the knowledge and the memories become one. And it's an amazing, beautiful experience.
I guess you're saying that we live under an illusion that this physical realm is all there is. But
Right.
there is all these heavenly realms and astral realms out there too.
Yes. And, we live in a multidimensional universe, and that there is much, much more.
So if you're not coming back here next time, where are you going?
If you're not coming back and you're done,
Yeah, where are you personally going next time?
where am I personally going? I don't know. You have to remember, I'm not an omniscient being, but I will be going to whatever that next level will be at the time that I'm finished here. And that will be the case with all of us. It will be determined by whatever that my level of development is at the time of my death, and what my particular soul needs to do next, and what are my tasks, so to speak. So I've done a lot of work, ironically, with afterlife. One of the things I had to do was be an overseer of souls coming and going as well. And so I've done a lot of that. And so what you'll see with people who cross over is they will spend a time doing different tasks. So a lot of people will watch over different souls, sometimes in their own families for a while. That'll be part of their job. I've seen people who were given jobs like in the medical wards of helping people who are crossing over who need time. Like, for instance, people who are suffering from dementia go through a special purification after death where they go through this medical ward to help them to kind of come back to full consciousness. Um, there are other places of purification, and people will be doing jobs there where they're helping people with what I call the TV screens. They would have 3 screens on each side, and they're literally processing through all the memories of their life. And they're undergoing like this. It's a life review, but it's also processing through what happened. And it's literally like a computer program somewhat, where they're understanding it, understanding what they did right, what they did wrong, and figuring out what they would have done differently, all these different types of things. People are going to camps or places where they are going to go for rest, and people are volunteers in places like that. There are university type places where people study. Um, there are a lot of things that people do in the afterlife, in between lifetimes or whatever. And then there are also other places, so higher spheres, like in the galactic heavens, the masters have this beautiful uh, center that floats in the galactic heavens, and it's very hard to get in there. You have to get an invitation, and they really put you through it to come in for even just a few minutes to ask them 1 or 2 questions. And it's like, you're like really, really, really on edge because um, it's a big deal to go see them, and then you don't get to stay long. Um, there are cities of light. There are crystal cities. There are forests that are made of crystal. There's the city of the New Jerusalem. There's the Palace of Ancient Knowledge, which is where all the texts from the beginning of time are kept. And it's 6 floors. I have no idea how they pulled that off, but they do have all the texts from the beginning of time. So they have the books and the scrolls, and they have people that are called to work in this Palace of Ancient Knowledge and tend to it. They have sacred keys that they have, so that they have to be a key holder to work in there. And they not only have the all the texts that are sacred to our world, but they have the galactic ancient sacred texts. So they have texts from other worlds. And I'm still waiting for, to be given permission to look at those. I've been able to look at them, like the covers, but not to read them. And I'm still waiting for permission on that one. So I mean, there's so much. There's so much. I could go on and on and on and on.
Well, Marilynn, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
I can. Um, the most important thing that I think everybody needs to understand is that God is love. And this understanding of what that means is so beyond everyone's real comprehension. The mercy of God is beyond all human comprehension. And wherever you are in the human spectrum of life, God is waiting to embrace you, to teach you, to assist you, to welcome you back, to welcome you home. There is nothing that makes you not qualified to receive God's love and his mercy. All you have to do is ask. And so this path is for all. It's for all of us. It's not a gift for just the few. It's something that is available to every one of us, no matter where you are, no matter what you think you've done or what you have done. God's mercy is unfathomable. And his desire to literally pour it out over all mankind is so great that you cannot even put it into words. So wherever you may be, don't be afraid to approach the holy altar of God, whether it is in prayer, in the quiet meditations that you do, or even just in a thought. This process can begin with a single thought of love. It can be a single movement, a single desire to know God better. It doesn't have to be some great big thing. If you want to know the truth and you're willing to let God lead you there, just ask. The door will open. In one way or another, the door will open.
Marilynn, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you very much, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. Thanks for watching the Jeff Mara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.